And here's what one amazing thing that happened today. Then you get into the stuff on Twitter. Well, Cincinnati couldn't do this or BYU couldn't do that. And they pull up the recruiting rankings. Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. All three of these teams would beat Cincinnati by 60. Well, maybe. But I watched Cincinnati play Georgia last year, and it was a really close game, one that Cincinnati could have and possibly should have won. They didn't. Georgia won it, but it was a one-possession game very late. And Cincinnati handled themselves very appropriately in the game. They were able to run the football somewhat. Desmond Ridder looked good. Their defense held up against, a really good Georgia rushing attack. Georgia had some guys that were out. Cincinnati had some guys that were out. It wasn't like this Georgia team vacated and didn't care about the game. I think they showed up and they played hard and they played inspired. And they didn't win by 60. So as I brought that up, it's like, well, Georgia didn't want to be there. I'm like, based upon what I was seeing in this tweet, it's like, well, you said that their players are so good that it shouldn't even really matter if they practice. And nobody, when they get on the field, no competitor ever is going to walk out there, and they may be underprepared, but if you're that talented, you just go beat the guys anyway. That didn't happen. And so I have no idea what can happen this year. There's some veteran teams. They've got a lot of super seniors. It'd be tough for Cincinnati to win the national championship. I'm openly acknowledging that. They'd have a really hard time with Bama. They'd have a hard time with Georgia. We watched it before. Ohio State, Iowa, Penn State, some of the Oklahoma. Yeah, I'm not saying that they'd be the favorite in those games, but I don't think it would be, a 21-point spread. A lot of those teams would probably be a single digit spread, probably within one score. But the guy who responded to me at Twitter with this said, I'll bet you $1,000 that Cincinnati doesn't win the national championship. $1,000 straight up, no odds, week 6. And I responded, so you're basically telling me that Cincinnati is like Tiger Woods of golf in 2008. If you want me to bet you $1,000 straight up that you get the field and I have to take Cincinnati to win it all, not already in the playoff, but 6 weeks out. So there's a lot of potential things that could happen. The Cincinnati might not even get in. So you're telling me that they're 60 points worse than these other teams, but then you wanting me to take $1,000 and put it on that they would be able to win and you get everybody else because I only cash in on a Cincinnati win. It's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard of. And I basically responded in such, it went right to the guy's like, yep. I'm like, that went right over your head. And multiple people acknowledged it, that you're telling me they're not good, but then I compare them to an historical great achievement. And you say, yeah, that sounds about right. Let's make that bet. This is where we are. Cincinnati, if they went out, they're going to get in. Notre Dame just probably had the toughest game on their schedule. And they had to go into Blacksburg remaining. And it's a tough environment at night and go get a win. And played Tyler Buckner. They played Jack Cohn, a combination of both of those guys. They're able to come away with a victory. Their offensive line played a little better. It was close, 32-29. It wasn't a blowout. But with that, Notre Dame, they have one loss. They're probably going to go 10-2, maybe a worse 9-3. It wouldn't shock me if they went 11-1. So you have a 10-2 Notre Dame team. Let's say for argument's sake, it was beaten by an undefeated Cincinnati team, beaten pretty thoroughly. You look at Notre Dame, they play a pretty diverse schedule. Another team I thought that could maybe knock them off, Stanford, they get shellacked by Arizona State. So I don't think that they're going to really be much of a challenge. I think the Pac-12 might almost be out of it now because I don't know if there's anyone good enough for Oregon to play that'll give them credibility should a lot of these other teams keep winning. But, it's just remarkable to see kind of all these things that have happened. But Notre Dame, they're a good football team. They're not great, but they're good. And so this is the unbelievable stuff that we have right now. It'd be the perfect year for probably an 8-team playoff to throw all these teams in a bag and let them fight it out and see who crawls out of the burlap sack. But man, I am here for it all.